The 3 messages came in one after another, maybe 30 seconds apart, the kind of spacing you get when a man is typing fast but choosing each word like it might be the last one that matters. George, don't go home. They came back, both of them. I can see them in your driveway from my porch. I was on Savannah Highway, maybe 6 miles from the house, still thinking about how my daughter had hugged me at the port. It had felt stiff, that hug, like a courtesy, like a woman embracing someone she had already moved on from. I had told myself it was just how things were between us lately. I pulled the truck onto the gravel shoulder near the Coburg Dairy Barn and sat there while the morning traffic swept past me. My name is George Eddington, 66 years old, 32 years as a forensic accountant, 20 of those with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division before I went private. I spent my career following money through shell companies, phantom invoices, and offshore accounts. I know how people hide things. I know the exact moment a number stops making sense. I should have applied that same skill to my own family a long time ago. I opened the security app on my phone. My hands were steady. Force of habit. When you've spent enough years sitting across the table from federal prosecutors and white-collar criminals, you learn to keep your hands steady no matter what your stomach is doing. The feed loaded. My daughter and my son-in-law were inside my house. I had dropped them at the Union Pier Cruise Terminal 90 minutes ago. I had lifted their bags out of the truck bed myself. I had watched them wave at me from the gangway line, smiling, relaxed, the picture of a young couple heading off for 10 days in the Caribbean. I had driven away thinking about how quiet the house was going to be. Now my son-in-law was standing in the middle of my study with a crowbar in his hand. I turned the volume up on the phone. "The safe is behind the Lowcountry map," my daughter said. Her voice was flat and businesslike, not panicked, not reluctant. "He's had it there since we moved him in after Mom died." My son-in-law walked to the wall. He lifted the framed survey map, a hand-drawn rendering of the Ace Basin that Bea and I bought at a gallery on King Street the year we got married, and set it on the floor, face down, without looking at it. The way you set down something that has no meaning to you, just an obstacle. There was the safe, a Browning Pro Steel, biometric and keypad, anchored into the concrete block wall. I had installed it myself. "Locksmith is 20 minutes out," my son-in-law said. My daughter nodded. I sat on the shoulder of Savannah Highway, watching my child nod at the man about to crack open the last private corner of my life, and I gave myself exactly 1 second of grief. 1 second. Then I put the truck in drive. I did not go home. I turned left on Folly Road and drove to a diner on James Island I've been going to for 15 years. Corner booth, good coffee, good light. A place where a 66-year-old man sitting alone with a phone doesn't attract any attention whatsoever. I called Rufus. He picked up on the first ring. Rufus Greer is 72 years old, retired Charleston PD, 31 years on the force. He's been my next-door neighbor since the Clinton administration. He is the kind of man who notices things, the kind who, when a young couple he has never seen before, pulls up in an Uber to the house next door at 10 in the morning, on the same day he watched his neighbor drive that same couple to the port, picks up his phone without being asked. "How many?" I said. "Just the two of them," he said, and a man in a blue Civic who showed up about 8 minutes after. Went inside, came out with a bag. Locksmith, I'd guess. You'd guess right. "You want me to call it in?" "Not yet. I need an hour first." "I'll be on the porch," he said and hung up. I ordered coffee and a biscuit I wasn't going to eat and called Horace. Horace Belmont has been my attorney for 28 years. We met at an IRS training seminar in Atlanta in 1998, argued about tax code interpretation over bad hotel coffee until 2 in the morning, and have been friends ever since. He's 69, semi-retired, keeps an office on Broad Street that smells like old paper and good bourbon. "George," he said when he picked up, "it's Saturday." "I know." They went back to the house. A pause. Both of them. Both. They've got a locksmith drilling the safe right now. Longer pause this time. "Do you want me to activate the Foundation protocols?" "Yes, and call your FBI contact. I've got camera footage uploading to the cloud server as we speak." "Are you safe?" "I'm at a diner eating a biscuit." "George," he sighed, "you knew this was coming." I looked out the window at the parking lot. A family was loading groceries into a minivan. A little girl was spinning in circles on the asphalt, arms out, face tipped up to the sky. I hoped I was wrong, I said. I had started noticing things about 8 months ago. Small things at first. My son-in-law asking about property values on the coast, asking how long I'd owned the low-country acreage, 247 acres of marsh and timberland west of Beaufort that Bay and I bought in 1989 for next to nothing, that was now worth somewhere north of $2 million. He'd ask it casually, the way a man asks when he already knows the answer, and just wants to confirm you'll give it to him straight. Then my daughter started coming around more. That should have felt good. It didn't feel good. She'd asked to borrow my study to work, but she never brought a laptop. She'd sit at my desk and ask to use my printer, and once I found a hand-drawn floor plan of my upstairs on the printer tray, my rooms, my closets, my shelving units, and when I asked about it, she said it was for a project and smiled the way people smile when they know you don't believe them, but also know you don't have proof. I'm a forensic accountant. I know when something doesn't add up. Bea used to say I was suspicious by profession and generous by nature, and that the two were always at war in me. She was right. My nature kept insisting, "That's your daughter, trust her." My profession kept saying, "Trust the numbers, and the numbers don't lie." My wife died 4 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. 6 weeks from diagnosis to the end. She was 61. She was the smartest person I've ever known, and I don't say that lightly. I spent 32 years in rooms full of very smart people. In the last 2 weeks of her life, while I sat beside her hospital bed, watching her get smaller, she was still making phone calls. Talking to Horace, talking to the foundation board, making sure everything was positioned exactly where she wanted it for when she couldn't watch over it herself. Bea grew up with nothing. Her father left when she was 7. Her mother worked doubles at a textile mill in Gaffney until her hands gave out. Bea put herself through college, put herself through law school, spent 20 years in environmental law, and spent the last decade of her career building the Beatrice Holloway Foundation, a 501c3 dedicated to the preservation of low-country wetlands. She loved those marshes the way some people love their children. The 247 acres west of Beaufort, she transferred them into the foundation 3 years before she died. I signed the paperwork at Horace's office on a Tuesday afternoon. Then we drove to a seafood place on Shem Creek and had shrimp and grits and 1 glass of cold white wine and didn't talk about it much because there wasn't much to say. It was done. It was right. I never told my daughter. I should have. I know that now. Every time I thought about having that conversation, something stopped me. Maybe I was protecting the letter from her. Maybe I was still waiting to see who she was going to become. Bea believed she could become someone worth trusting. I kept waiting for that woman to show up. I sat in that corner booth for 45 minutes, watching the camera feed on my phone, drinking coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since Thursday. The locksmith cracked the safe in 34 minutes. I watched the door swing open. I watched my son-in-law reach inside. He pulled out a tray of documents, insurance papers, the deed to the house, tax returns going back to 2010. He flipped through them fast, dropped them on the floor. He found a velvet bag and opened it. Inside were 3 pieces of Bea's jewelry, a strand of cultured pearls, a sapphire pendant on a gold chain, a braided gold bracelet she'd worn to our daughter's wedding. He set each one on the desk with the careful attention of a man estimating resale value. Then he reached to the back of the safe and pulled out the cedar box. It was small, about the size of a shoebox. Bea had painted it herself, dark green with a small sprig of marsh grass on the lid in white. She used to keep it on her nightstand. My son-in-law opened it. Inside, a sealed envelope, a gold wedding band on a square of velvet, and a photograph, Bea and my daughter at Folly Beach, the summer of 2019, the last summer before the diagnosis. They're both laughing at something off camera. My daughter's hair is wet from the ocean. Bea's hand is on her shoulder. My son-in-law held the ring up to the window light, turned it slowly. "Solid," he said. 18 karat. We can get 5, maybe 600 for this alone. My daughter said nothing. He slipped the ring into his jacket pocket. Bea wore that ring for 38 years. I put it on her finger in a small church in Spartanburg in front of 40 people, and her mother, who cried through the entire ceremony. When the cancer spread to her hands and her fingers swelled, I was the one who eased it off for the last time. She asked me to keep it safe. I put the phone face down on the table. I sat there with my hands flat on the formica surface. Then I picked it back up, turned it over, and watched the rest. My son-in-law tore open the sealed envelope. He read it. His face changed in a way I recognized, not confusion exactly. The specific expression of a man whose calculation has just returned a number he didn't expect. My daughter took the paper from him. She read it in silence. Her face went very still. It was the foundation disclosure letter. Horace had prepared it 3 years ago, and I'd placed it in the safe as the formal record. It explained in plain legal language that the 247 acres of low-country property, the investment portfolio, the stock certificates, all of it, belonged to the Beatrice Holloway Foundation, an irrevocable 501(c)(3), that the assets could not be sold, transferred, or encumbered by any individual, that I served as the foundation's trustee with authority to manage but not to liquidate, that no guardian, conservator, or family member could override those terms. He moved everything, my son-in-law said. He didn't move it, my daughter said quietly. It was never ours to begin with. She set the letter on the desk. She looked at it for a long moment. Something crossed her face that I couldn't read on a 4-inch screen from 6 miles away. I'm not sure I could have read it in person either. Then her phone came out. Her voice shifted, softer, rehearsed. Dad? Honey, it's me. I'm so sorry to bother you. Something happened. His chest is hurting him. We came back to the house. I know it was silly, but you know how he is about doctors. Could you come home? Are you close? I cleared my throat. Let my voice slow down a little. Let it get uncertain around the edges. The way it does in the early mornings when I'm not quite awake yet, and the house is quiet, and I sometimes still reach for B's side of the bed before I remember. Oh, honey. Of course. I'm at that diner on James Island, I think. I'll head back right now. Is he breathing all right? He's fine, Dad. Just come home. And don't stop anywhere. I paid the check. Left a 20 on a $6 ticket because I was raised to tip well and I wasn't going to let that morning change it. Then I drove home. Rufus was on his porch. He gave me a small nod when I pulled in. I nodded back. My daughter opened the front door before I reached it. Her eyes were red. I didn't know exactly why. The particular kind of shame that makes your eyes water without quite letting you actually cry can look like a lot of things. There he is, my son-in-law said from the couch. He was sitting upright, no visible distress, holding a glass of my sweet tea like he'd been there all morning. Sorry to drag you back, George. I think it was just the heat at the terminal. You know how I get in the humidity. I do, I said. I sat down in B's armchair, rested my hands on the arms, looked around the room slowly, like a man just getting oriented. So, my son-in-law said, while you're here, there's something we've been meaning to talk to you about. My daughter sat on the edge of the coffee table, hands on her knees. She was looking at a spot on the floor between us. We're worried about you, Dad, she said. The other day when you called me by Mom's name. Did I? I don't remember that. That's kind of the point. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. We've been keeping notes, little things. We talked to a doctor, just to be cautious. She slid the folder across the table. Inside was a 2-page document with a letterhead I didn't recognize, describing a 66-year-old male patient with increasing episodes of confusion, disorientation, and impaired financial judgment, recommending that temporary financial guardianship be established for the patient's protection, signed by a doctor I'd never heard of, for an office that likely didn't exist. Below the medical document were 2 more pages, a durable power of attorney, a financial authorization transfer. It's just temporary, my son-in-law said, leaning forward. He had the voice of a man who'd practiced this. Warm, reasonable, patient. Until things stabilize, we'd manage your accounts, your property decisions, just to make sure everything's handled. I looked at my daughter. She was still looking at the floor. I see, I said. I reached for the pen she held out. And the doorbell rang. My son-in-law stood up. My daughter looked at the door. Horace Belmont was on the front porch, wearing a Saturday blazer and the expression of a man who has spent 3 decades watching other people make catastrophic legal errors and has learned to be patient about it. Behind him were 2 people in plain clothes, a man and a woman, whose identification, when they showed it, bore the seal of the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Behind us, from the kitchen door, Rufus stepped inside. He didn't announce himself. He just stood there. My son-in-law made a move toward the back hallway. He got 3 steps. "I'd sit back down," Rufus said. Not loud, just a statement of fact from a man who'd spent 31 years making statements of fact. He sat. It went quickly after that. It always does when the structure collapses. You can build and build on a bad foundation, and when it finally gives, the whole thing comes down in minutes. The agents explained the charges: wire fraud, elder financial exploitation, criminal conspiracy. They mentioned the locksmith, who had already spoken to them. They mentioned the phone records. They mentioned the cloud-stored footage that had been uploading since 10 that morning. My son-in-law said nothing. Whatever version of himself he'd built over the years, the smooth talker, the charming entrepreneur, the man who always had a plan, that version had nothing left to offer. My daughter said nothing either. She stood very still, and she kept looking at me, and I kept looking back, and something passed between us that I still don't have a clean word for. When they moved to take my son-in-law out, Bay's wedding ring fell out of his jacket pocket. It hit the hardwood floor with a small, clean sound and rolled under the coffee table. I bent down and picked it up. The female agent looked at me. "Sir, was that removed from your property without your consent?" "Yes," I said. She noted it. They took my son-in-law out through the front door. The sound of the patrol car door shutting was solid and final, the way a period sounds when a very long sentence is done. My daughter was still in the room. The agents were on the porch. Horace and Rufus were just outside. We were alone. She sat down on the couch and put her face in her hands, not crying, not exactly, just sitting that way for a long moment, very still, hands over her face, like someone trying to find a silence they could hold on to. "Did you know?" I asked. "Before it went this far, did you know what he was planning to do?" A long silence. "I knew he needed money," she said. "I knew it was serious. He told me there was a way to handle it, that you had more than enough and you'd never miss it." She paused. I knew that wasn't true. I let myself believe it anyway. I nodded. I didn't say anything about the floor plans, the 3 months of surveillance, the locksmith. There would be time for all of that. Attorneys, depositions, a process that would move forward with or without my commentary. What I cared about was the cedar box, which Rufus had quietly set on the kitchen counter when he came in. I walked over and picked it up, carried it back, and sat down across from her. I opened the lid. I set the photograph on the coffee table between us. The 2 of them at Folly Beach, laughing, Bia's hand on her shoulder, the last summer. My daughter looked at it. Her jaw tightened. "The letter," she said. "In Mom's handwriting. I saw it when he opened the box." She looked up at me. I didn't read it. I reached into the box and took out the sealed envelope. "For my daughter, when she is ready. Love, Bea." Written in the careful cursive she used when she wanted something to last. I have carried this letter for 4 years. I've taken it out and looked at it more times than I can count. Every time I thought about giving it to her, something stopped me. Maybe I was protecting the letter. Maybe I was protecting her from it. Maybe I was just protecting myself from what it meant if she wasn't ready, and I handed it over anyway. "Are you ready?" I asked. She looked at the envelope. Something in her face shifted, not dramatically, not like anything in a movie. A small, quiet shift, the way light changes in a room when a cloud moves. "I don't know," she said, which was the most honest thing she'd said to me in a long time. I set the letter on the coffee table. I set B's ring next to it. "Your mother was not a perfect woman," I said. "She was stubborn and she worked too much, and she cried at every commercial that featured a dog. She never once admitted she was cold, not in 38 years, even when I could see her shivering. But she loved you in ways I couldn't always see clearly, because I was looking from the outside. This letter is the part I couldn't see." My daughter looked at the envelope. "When you're ready," I said, "you know where to find me." I stood up. I went to the kitchen and made a pot of coffee. I could hear Horace and Rufus talking on the front porch, the way old men talk after something serious has ended. Slowly, with long pauses, in that particular frequency of people who have seen enough to not be shocked anymore, but still feel the weight of things. I poured 2 extra cups and brought them out. We sat together, the 3 of us, while the October afternoon settled in over Charleston. 2 blocks away, someone was cutting grass. A heron was making its slow way across the marsh sky. The light came through the live oaks at that long southern angle, that turns everything gold for about 20 minutes before it's gone. I held B's ring in my closed hand. The weight of it is not much, physically. In every other way, it is everything. That was 6 weeks ago. My son-in-law pleaded guilty to 2 federal counts of wire fraud and 1 count of elder financial exploitation. He is facing 5 to 8 years. His attorney advised him to cooperate, which he did, which opened a separate set of questions for the private lender he'd borrowed from. Questions that lender is finding difficult to answer. My daughter cooperated with the district attorney's office. She was not charged. She is in counseling. That was her decision, not a condition of anything. We talk on the phone every few days. Short calls, careful, occasionally real. She read the letter. She called me on a Tuesday evening 3 weeks ago while I was on the porch watching the light go off the marsh. She didn't say much. I didn't say much either. Some things you don't need language for. You just need someone to stay on the line until it's over. The Beatrice Holloway Foundation closed on a conservation's easement last month. 200 acres of prime low-country wetlands, permanently protected. Bea would have driven out there with her binoculars and her thermos of green tea and sat in the marsh grass until it got too dark to see anything. Rufus and I have coffee on Saturday mornings. He drinks his black. I take cream. We have argued about this every Saturday for 12 years, and the argument has never once moved an inch. That's the thing about old friendships. The arguments aren't really about coffee. Bea's compass, a small brass pocket compass her father sent her before he died, the only thing she ever received from him, is back on the mantel where it belongs. I had to polish a small scratch off the case. It came out clean. Before she died, Bea said to me, "Build something that outlasts the people who want to take it apart." She meant the wetlands, the foundation, the 247 acres that will still be marsh and timber and open sky long after every person in this story is gone. But I think she also meant something smaller, something the size of a cedar box, something you keep on your nightstand because it holds a ring and a photograph and a letter you're not sure the right person has arrived to receive yet. You build it anyway, you hold it anyway, you wait. The compass always knew which way was home. I just had to trust it long enough to find out if she did too.